Okay, and a lot of things to share. First one is, this seems really simple. You guys should be seeing a list that says open house list. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is one that a lot of times people ask me, what do I take to open houses? So I learned the hard way. My very first open house was in the middle of the summer. It was in, and I remember distinctly, it was 95 degrees that day. It was a 3-bedroom, 1-bath home, no air conditioning, and there was no airflow. So even if you opened up the windows, it didn't help. I showed up and fully dressed in a tie, and I was sweating all day long. So that was one of the things I learned, like, okay, I need to be a little bit more prepared when it comes to doing these things. And I started devising a list, kind of like, well, what do I need to bring with me? The home was vacant, and the home was also kind of dirty. Just because other realtors have hosted open houses, don't expect the house to be clean. So that being said, let's say in a magic world, all your signs are put out. So we're not going to factor that in right now. And your open house starts at noon. Don't expect to show up at 10 of 12 and you're ready to go at noon. A number of things probably need to be set up ahead of time. You need to check out the property. You need to turn on all of the lights inside. One of the tips is you always want a home that's well lit. If a home seems dark, people don't want to buy it. So you want all the lights on in a home. In fact, the second home I sold was a condo that was on the first floor, and it was just in a dark corner. There's no way around it. And so I even bought floor lamps and placed them, 2 of them, kind of in certain strategic parts of the place. You could tell there were floor lamps. I wasn't fooling anybody, but it did make the place seem brighter. So it didn't have that dark feeling as you walked into it. But you want to be there ahead of time. I mean, you want to be on the ball and make sure that everything's in place. Now, what if the place is filthy, like the very first open house I ever did? Then you got to sweep up and you need to clean, and do that kind of thing. So that may take some time. So you just want to take that all in, you just want to make sure. Backing up a little bit more. What about putting the signs out? Now, if you're putting signs out, you need to at least allot for about an hour. In fact, Ashley can attest. One time on an open house, I showed up at, I think Ashley got there at 30 minutes before the open house, and she wasn't hosting it. So that was great because I told everybody to show up at that time. Then I saw her and like, oh, okay, great. You can park over there. But I had already been placing signs for 20 minutes on some of the streets going to the place. Then I was like, okay, no problem. This is where you need to go. And then I took the other amount of time and placed all the other signs. It takes about an hour, and I've gotten it down, but it takes about an hour to set up those signs and kind of strategically place how you want to place them and so on. That's a whole, a whole thing in and of itself. Some of the tips on signs. When you're doing signs, every city is going to have different ways they view when realtor place signs. Some cities don't care. Some cities you can put your signs out and they don't care. Most cities will have something in there that will say something like, do not block pedestrian traffic. So, okay. So my city, for instance, Whittier, I have never had a sign that's been tagged or ticketed or, whatever. But I've always made sure, like when I place them on a corner somewhere and it's a busy corner, especially with signals, I put them like right at the signal where I'm not blocking anybody's traffic anywhere. So it's not a problem. I'll do that sort of thing. That's one of them. Some cities will say like, oh, no, we don't want your signs on public property at all. So they will sometimes take the signs, sometimes they will fine you. So if you're doing an open house in a particular city, I would Google and just kind of try and find out what the guidelines are. And it can vary from city to city. So don't expect also to ask one person in our office, well, what about this city? If they have no familiarity with they probably don't know. On the other side, let's say you have somebody that's always doing Culver City in our office, and you have an open house in Culver City, then maybe you can ask that realtor, hey, by the way, what are some of the guidelines on the signs? What do I have to watch for? My mom years ago, when she did real estate in the late 80s, there wasn't as much of a, people weren't getting as particular, but then agents with the signs, they weren't as bad until some of them started getting lazy and literally taped the signs to the signals and other public property. And then the city started cracking down on that, because then it started becoming a hassle. Or the reason why they don't want you blocking pedestrian traffic is because what if you have 5 realtors putting signs on one corner and then nobody can walk by? So especially following ADA rules. So that's the kind of stuff you want to be careful of. Most of the realtors are really respectful with your signs. Every once in a while you find somebody who might move your sign. Not cool, but it is what it is. I got a really good tip when I first got in the industry. When you are setting signs out, you want the signs to be placed as if you're driving and you're going to be able to have enough time to make a turn. That being said, let's say you're going to turn on La Cienega to get to the open house, and you put just a sign on La Cienega. Well, then you're not helping the person who's driving that's not looking for the open house, but happens to see the sign and may want to go to it, because by the time they are upon that sign, it's probably too late for them to slow down, make the signal, and turn. So you want to think like as they're driving. So you want to put signs where, oh, there's an open house coming up and I need to turn a little bit ahead. And then that way they're looking for kind of the indicators on where they want to turn. Some things that, this is being recorded, but I kind of don't care. Some things that I kind of scooch around. When you have, a lot of times when you have something that, let's say it's a strip mall and there's a little patch of grass, nobody really owns that grass. Well, no, I take that back. The grass is owned. Nobody really cares about what's on that grass as long as you're not being destructive or anything. And a lot of times I'll place a sign on that grass and I've never had anybody, say anything to me. Every once in a while, let's say there's a gas station on the corner of Whittier where they have a, nice piece of grass. And I just asked the attendant there, hey, by the way, do you mind if I place a sign there? The attendants are cool, no big deal. That's all fine. If you're doing somebody's parkway, in front of their house, technically, like I have parkways at my house, I don't own those parkways, but you go a long ways if you ask for permission ahead of time. Let me give you a tip on that. I went ahead and there was one open house, and I knew we were going to do open houses for months for this home, because we were literally the top end of the market at the time. And I went to, and by the way, this particular neighborhood, there was no parkways. So even though, there's a certain amount of, those of you who may not be aware, usually the city owns within 5 feet from the street of your, where the street meets your property. But many places like this neighborhood, there's no sidewalk. So literally their lawn went all the way to the sidewalk, or to the curb. And I still went to every homeowner, knocked on their door, which took extra time. So the first time I set up my open house signs for this particular property, it took me 1 hour and 45 minutes. But everywhere I felt like, oh, it'd be helpful to ask permission, I would. I got permission every time, or they never answered the door. And I put up my signs. I also took note of all of those addresses, and I sent them a thank you card with a Starbucks card, and said, hey, thank you so much, of course, with my business card in there. And it also kind of made everything nice, where in the future, when I was setting up signs, if they happened to see me, everybody was super friendly. Hey, how's it going? All of a sudden you have a rapport, and you can continue with that rapport if you would like, which is a good thing to do. And it also made it where, hey, you're not putting up your sign every single week on my property. I never had that issue, because I kind of made everything friendly up front. I had to account for that time. So I had to, make sure. Many times some people will set up open house signs And let's say they're doing it on Saturday and Sunday, they'll set them up Friday night. You know, so if you want to do that, maybe Friday evening's a good time, like let's say 5, 6 p.m. So you homeowners, you can still, you know, knock on their door or say hi or whatever. But just take all of that into account, you know, and just be aware of that sort of thing. You want to, it depends on where the property is, but, you know, you want at least 2 ways usually to get into the property from multiple streets so people can follow it along. Many of us will put actually the address on our open house sign. And sometimes we even put the time and that the open house is going to be. So people are aware of that. The more information, the better, but you also have to make it legible. You know, you don't want to make it so much reading that people can't even know what you're talking about. And I'm going to refer to one of my open house signs I designed in a second. So basically, that's getting set up. You're not even doing the open house. Getting to the open house. Some basics, candles. Why do you want candles? Or you want a wax warmer or something like that. I am going to tell you, don't take a bunch of Febreze or that kind of stuff. Anything that smells chemically, people know it smells chemically. You know, you want something that smells just more pleasing to everyone. So that's why candles and wax warmers, oils, that kind of stuff work very well, because you want the home to be friendly. People, when they go into a home, people make a lot of emotional decisions. And so what you're trying to do is you're trying to help them trigger that emotional decision. So you want to get a candle that most people will be very amenable to. So something like a vanilla scented candle, that's usually a home run. Another trick that realtors do, my mom used to do this all the time when she did real estate, is you would put drops of vanilla inside the oven or on a cookie sheet inside the oven and just warm the oven a little bit up. So then all of a sudden the home has that warm vanilla cooking smell to it. All of those sort of things set the tone for the home. If you come into a home and it's just stagnant, it is stagnant, you know, if it's got, and especially if it has a cleaning scent to it, you know, people like, oh, that's, you know, you may think, oh, it's great, it smells clean, but other people may say, oh God, this place smells chemically. So you want to trigger the emotions that will help them feel like they're at home there. If you are using a candle, make sure you have a lighter, sort of thing. So you can actually light the candles. And adjust all of these, you know, depending on whether the home is vacant or not vacant. If the home is vacant, take toilet paper with you. I have been in an open house where literally there was no toilet paper, and it was before Instacart. So I couldn't just Instacart toilet paper over. Now you can at least Instacart it, which I have done at times. I've been at some open houses and I'm like, oh, we needed this, this, and this. And I just Instacarted it over. But just one of those things, make sure you have that. Ashley knows this, that when we did the open houses together in Highland Park, it was a 2.5 bathroom home, and the half bath, by the way, usually whenever it's a 2.5 bathroom home, if you're in one of those homes, always the half bath is one. If people need to wash their hands, use the restroom, any of that, you have a designated bathroom, and that's the one you designate. If not, then figure out what bathroom is the best one to designate and do that. Have hand soap and towels available. You know, all of that kind of stuff, know ahead of time. And like I said, any cleaning supplies you think you may need. Now, are you going to come with a mop and mop the place down? Probably not, you know, but you kind of want the basic stuff where if you know you have to wipe things down, you may need paper towels or, you know, something like that. You can ask, you can always ask, by the way, whoever is a listing agent for the open house, what condition it's in or what they may need. And every once in a while, you may need to take that stuff with you. You want to have pins, not only for people signing in on open house sheets, but if you need to take notes or they want to take notes or anything like that. You also want background music. Now, a lot of times the easiest thing is, oh, I'll just stream something in. Oh, I'll just do something like a radio. If you have commercials, you're kind of defeating the purpose, because again, you want to set the tone. So also, let's not put it on acid rock. Let's not, you know, put it on really hardcore rap, or as much as my husband loves country, not everybody does. So probably not put it on country. Usually when I choose something, it's usually just a nice background music of any sort. Sometimes, and I've gotten bored of my playlist before. I have like this great piano playlist that's all these great piano tunes that are upbeat, but still it's just a piano playing. And I got bored of it. So I also had then a Natalie Cole playlist, and then I have a Sarah Vaughan playlist, and I have some jazz playlists, and I have all of that kind of stuff. But all that kind of music I play is the kind of stuff that anybody walking into the house, everybody it's pleasing to. It also fills in the stark quiet. When people walk into a home and it's stark quiet, they can feel uncomfortable. And as soon as they feel uncomfortable, you're beginning to lose the battle there. Now, a lot of people walking into a home doesn't mean they're going to buy then and there. No, but if they're not represented, you want them to feel comfortable, because then it allows you to have the conversation with them and get to know them. Again, Ashley, I'm picking on you, girl, but that's the way it is. Ashley held a number of the open houses, and there was a number of people that came in that were totally unrepresented. They were looking at my Highland Park listing for 1.5 million. So we knew they were somewhere in that shopping range, and they weren't working with anyone. And so Ashley was able to get a hold of their contact information and, and go from there. You want to set the environment that facilitates that makes that much more comfortable. Now, mind you, this list was created way before COVID. So, because I've been in the business for a while. But a lot of times you would have refreshments. You would have something to snack on. You would, now snack on, don't buy cookies. Don't buy anything that crumbles. Don't buy anything that makes a mess. That's not what you want. And you also want it appropriate to the open house. When I did this open house in Downey, and we really needed to make a splash and make our brokers open, our initial open house for the weekend, something really cool. I had a professional chef make appetizers, and many appetizers. I told them what was going on. I said they can't be messy. I told them exactly what to do. And oh my God, they were good. Oh, they were just incredible. So we had that available, and we had the LaCroix waters available for people. And it just created a nice setting, made people feel comfortable. Right now in our environment, I would not put out food, but I would have water available for people, individual waters. Usually water bottles are great. It also allows you to just kind of offer something to them. Hey, would you like some water? That sort of thing. Again, it just creates that nice environment. You're being friendly. Things for you personally. I always tell people, bring your own food, drink, and water, because you don't want to starve. The idea that, let's say you have open house and you're hosting it from 12 to 4. Well, that means that let's say you've already done your homework. So you're going to start putting out the signs at 11. And by the time you close everything up and get out of there, it may be 5 p.m. That means you've gone 6 hours without eating or drinking. Yeah, that's not going to work out well. So make sure you have something with you that will sustain you. But I have been at open houses where somebody ordered like a sandwich or something, and basically the sandwich kind of stunk. And so now the house stunk of that sandwich. So just be careful what you bring with you and what you decide to do. You may need work to do. Sometimes open houses, there may be a long lag. I mentioned the first open house I did. I had a pretty steady stream of people, but I could easily have 45 minutes of nobody showing up, so that's 45 minutes of, well, what am I going to do? I had another open house one time that was in, Los Feliz. It was in Los Feliz, and way up in the hills in Los Feliz. And I literally had one person show up that day. And that was one that I brought work with me. And so I just got work done. And don't always expect you're going to have Wi-Fi or you're going to be able to tether off your phone. Because if you're in, in a hole in the wall place or something like that, especially the farther, the more unique homes that you, if you're holding open house at them, you may not have access. So just make sure you have things available to do, that if you need to do, but also don't make it a mess. Again, you want to set the tone. You don't want it where, hey, you have a huge mess in front of you, where as soon as somebody walks in, you can close your laptop, or you can just let's say you're writing out note cards to people, you can just put those in a little briefcase or a little something, slide it over, and then get to what you need to get to, and it's not a mess. Presentation. Make sure too you have a phone charger, because Lord knows if you're using your phone, you may go low on battery. So just make sure you have that kind of stuff available. Then real estate specific stuff, you want to have business cards available. That way you can go ahead and obviously pass those out. You want to have printouts for the signs. So what I mean by the printouts are, you have an open house sign, but what if on the open house sign, you want to have the address or the hours or something? Well, then have those printed out ahead of time and make them look neat. Okay, that's one thing that drives me crazy. I will see people, and I mean, from nice agencies, people will, they will have open house signs and they tape the outside, okay? First time you do that, it may look okay, but then that tape residue sticks, and then it gets dirty, and then the sign gets dirty, and the sign gets beat up, and the signs are gonna get kind of beat up anyway, but you wanna make them look good for as much as possible, and blah, 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 blah. So if you're gonna do, you know, the address signs, I would say to, at a minimum, use like tape on the back, and that way when you place it on there, the tape residue isn't going to be showing. One thing I really like to do actually is, let's say, and sorry guys, I cleaned up in here so I don't have this, but let's say this is my actual open house sign. I will tape, and I'll put like on part of the tape, I'll put on the paper like double-sided tape, and then I will stick it on the inside of the sign. So it's technically it's on the inside of the sign at the bottom, but then it still shows up. But then if there's any residue, it doesn't matter, because it's in that part of the A-frame of the sign. It's on the inside of that nobody sees. So the sign remains cleaned up, and it's actually a nice presentation that way. And it's easier for people to follow. Have brochures ready. If you have any guides, you know, let's say you have buying guides or selling guides, you can have a printout of those. I would recommend only have one printout available, because if you have multiple printouts, then people, well, let me just take this, and you never hear from them again. If you have one printout available and you're having a conversation like, oh, well, you know what, I can, I have some buying guides. In fact, here's a sample, and if you give me your information, I can send it to you. Why are you doing that? Because that way you capture their information. You can get their information and you can send something to them. And that way, not only do you have their contact information, but it gives a reason to follow up multiple times. First time is you actually send it to them. Second time is a few days later, you can call them up or email, text, you know, more call or text is better, but still, and find out, well, did you read through it? Did you have any questions? Why don't we go over this together? Blah, 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 any of that kind of stuff. You want to have that. You want to have the house flyer, available. Now, I get asked all the time on this, well, is it okay if I have my information on there? Does it have to have the listing agent's information? You're holding the open house, so you can have your information on there. Some people will print out the one that you can do by default from the MLS. That's okay. I think it looks kind of generic, and I think especially, this is my own opinion, but especially if you start dealing with higher end properties, I think it's it comes off a little cheap, because that's the only thing you have printed out. Again, if that's the only thing you can do, okay, fine. By default, it'll have all the information on there, all your contact information and so on, so you're good to go. If you have a chance, you can do your own open house flyer. Also through our forward marketing, if you have enough time, you can create a flyer. I can, I'll just finish this, and then I'm going to go into some of the examples. You can also have mortgage estimates. That you want to depend on the home. Let's say you're in a home, and I'm just going to shoot high. Let's say you're in a home in Bel Air, you know, and the home is listed at $9 million. Probably don't need to worry about mortgage estimates. People coming into those homes, they're not worried about if they're going to make the mortgage payments. What if you're sitting on a house and you're sitting on a condo, and it's in the Hollywood area, and it's listed for $629,000? People want to know how much their payments are going to be on a place like that, because a lot of people will be making mortgage payments. So if you have a mortgage breakdown, then that could really help. And of course, you want to have sign-in sheets. And I have a few examples of sign-in sheets. So there's that information. I'm going to dive into some of the other things that now we can really kind of deep dive. Okay, open house. Here is, you guys should be seeing my open house sign. And this sign is the one that I designed. And I can tell you where I already screwed up on this sign. But I literally had a box printed of 200 of these things. So I'm not going to be revising them anytime soon. So if you look at it, one of my pet peeves when it comes to open house signs is, well, where is the open house going to? So as you can see, I have, and what is the whole thing about? There it is. Open house at the very top with an arrow, really easy to follow. Who is the person? Really easy. There's my name. Where's the contact info? My phone number is biggest. Now, I literally put in my email address, and I even kind of wondered about this, if I needed to do it. And at the time I did it because it was branding to myself, like, hey, I thought, like, it kind of makes me look more professional. Here's my, obviously, if you need to go to my website, blah, blah, blah. The reality is, have you ever driven by somebody's open house sign and thought, let me email that person? Texting or calling, yes, people do all the time, but emailing, really? Is that going to happen? So it's one of those things I put on mine, but probably on my next revision, if I need the room, I have no problem pulling it off because it's not that, needed. I have my name on there. I have my Photoshop photo on there, which I need to update because I like my other photo better. I have my BRE, now it's DRE number on there. And by the way, that just was because it was Bureau of Real Estate. Now it's back to Department of Real Estate. But I have my number on there and blah, blah, blah. And I have the brokerage. Where do you think I messed up on this?
The double arrow.
What?
The double arrows.
No, actually, good observation. But this is page, and probably because you can't see, that's page 1 and 2.
Got it.
So on
The other address, the house that you're actually showing, like,
I don't have room for that. Exactly.
right.
I don't have room. That was the thing when I first put these out and first used them first time, I'm like, okay, this is great. And then I realized, crap. Now that's where I came up with the idea of, well, let me paste it underneath, but sometimes it doesn't always lend itself to that. So if you have some space in there to do that, that would help. So that's the reason why I said right now, if I were to drop my email address, bingo, I have a spot to put it in. Or if I were to shrink the Keller Williams large font and put that somewhere else or whatever, I have a spot to put in. But I've been using these now for a number of years, and that's a revision I would do for my needs. Everybody is different, and that sort of thing. But the one thing I will point out on these is, and this is what I've seen from other people's open house signs, sometimes they got very artistic. When they got very artistic, I'm like, great, that's a pretty sign. I don't know what it is, and I'm driving right by. Or it would say open house. But then they did these really artistic arrows in it that probably looked really cool when they designed it. But driving by, I'm like, I don't know which direction I'm going, right or left. And oh my God, it's a busy street. I'm going to keep going. So I wanted to make sure my sign was legible and easy to read. But just like my business card, I stopped my revisions at, I think, at 13 or 14. As you go on in this business, you're going to learn what you want to tweak and what you want to change and so on. And it's part of you growing in the business. It's not going to be, perfect every single time. Next up, I want to hit the I want to hit the flyer. There it is. Okay, now I mentioned the idea of flyers. Right now, you should see luxury and comfort. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. This is the second home I ever sold. It was a condo, and this is the second home I ever sold. And this was the flyer I put together. And what I did now, actually, and by the way, we had an 11 by 17 bifold. So that means it just folded in half. So it went to 8.5 by 11 brochure, and it was 4 pages. But then I also had this flyer here that was available. Why? Well, because on the brochure, I didn't have a price, but I kind of had a feeling that we may need to adjust the price on this place. So because of that, I had the brochure separate, and the brochure went into much more detail, by the way. It went into the entire lifestyle. Sometimes, by the way, I think on a lot of homes, especially nicer homes, we really lose it. If you look at a good realtor who's been in the business for a while and they're marketing a home in a nice area, look at what they're marketing. They're marketing the home and the lifestyle, which also means the neighborhood. So that's what I did in my brochure, is it marketed the whole thing. In my flyer, it was more a condensed version of that. So this was my design that I did, and here's where the price was, and it was double-sided. And so obviously it was the same size. And this shows you how long ago it was, because this is when I was with my first brokerage. But and this slid right into the brochure. So when people left, they could put it all together there. But this is what I had put out there for people, and it allowed them to, you know, take it in. If you notice too, more photos and less words. That's you know, a photo conveys you know, 1,000 words, as they always say, and people do not emotionally connect with the words as much as they do the photos. So you want them to have that experience when you're doing a flyer. That's one reason why some of the MLS flyers, I think they're great for what they are. But if you can do something more, especially if you have a little bit of time, I would try and do something like that. Or even, I've seen people, and I've had to do this too, because I've been in just a quick spot where it's like, oh my God, I'm doing an open house tomorrow in this place, and I don't know anything about it. So I printed out the MLS flyer, and that was one side. And then on the other side, I did kind of like a brief layout, a little bit similar to this, that kind of made everything look pretty. And because all the technical info was on the front, BRE number, all that kind of crap, then on the back, I could just make it all pretty photos or whatever. And it kind of served that purpose. So that was the flyer I did. There was another trick I did on this particular condo, because we were overpriced. Well, we were at the top end of the market. We weren't overpriced, but we were at the top end of the market at the time. So what I did was I kept tabs on the Zillow and the Redfin, what the estimates were. And this I did because I knew we were overpriced. So, well, at the top end, again, I'll say that. But look at what I did, because at when I did it on a Friday, the Zestimate for the condo was $954, and we were listed at $950. So, oh yeah, let me just do a screenshot of this and print it out. And so then it was right there for people to see. So when people came in, I could let them know, hey, if you notice, you know, we're actually at the price we should be, or something like that. Redfin and Zillow, it's going to be a two-edged sword. You're going to have some people in our office and our industry that'll say, oh my God, why do you even do anything with that? The reality why I bring it up is your clients are not going to be stupid. And if you were somebody shopping for a home, you would go on Redfin and Zillow and see, well, what do they say? Even if they're right or wrong, I want to know what they say. So most likely your clients are going to at least be aware of it. So just call the elephant out in the room. There it is. And if the price is wrong, explain why it's wrong, you know, sort of thing. And for this, now, by the way, we had 1 week where all of a sudden this estimate dropped to like 944. And so I didn't have the flyer out because, okay, I'm not going to do it that weekend. I wanted to be, you know, totally honest about it. But the, you know, the weekends where, hey, the estimate was above, I put it above and I put it out there. So people kind of came in and was like, oh, okay. And we actually got, it was $950 fully furnished, and they didn't want it fully furnished. So we still got full value for the dollar on that place. Which was my second sale. So I was really happy about that. And that's a That's a whole conversation to have with you guys about dealing with different clients when I've talked about this personalities. Okay, so open house sign-in sheets. You're going to see a number of different ones out there. And let me see if I get the right one. You should see an open house sign-in sheet right now. That is it the one where it has, because it doesn't tell me sometimes on the sharing, where it has individual names, just name and address, or does it have what are your current real estate needs?
Just the name, address, phone, email.
Bingo. Okay. Ashley knows I do not like this one. Why do you think I don't like this sign-in sheet?
Too busy looking or?
Yeah, that's one of the things. Yes, I agree. What else?
You only get to remember the person based on their information just here, like there's no personality to it.
Oh my gosh. Yes, yes, yes. That's a pet peeve of mine. Okay, keep going, people.
It doesn't discuss their real estate needs, or if they're working with another agent.
Yes. I totally agree with everything you guys have said. On top of that, another one is people want to keep their information private. So what if 3 people have signed in and now it's your turn to sign in? Oh, wait, and how many more people are going to sign in? People don't want all their information just out there.
Right.
Especially when they know people can take out their cell phone and just take a photo. So people are going to be hesitant on that. Would you want to, when they have sign-in sheets, if it just has your name on it, and sometimes even name and phone number when you sign in somewhere, I'm like, oh, no big deal. But when they have sign-in sheets and they want all of this kind of information, I'm hesitant. I'm like, I don't want to put all my information out there. So that's one of the things. It also kind of is impersonal. Ashley and Nemo, you were pointing out the idea of, well, you can't put, and Renee, you can't write notes, you can't do this, blah, 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 but it's also impersonal too. And so no, not a big fan of this one. Then there was a slightly second improved one, which should be the one it should show is the one where it has a few more questions. What are your current real estate needs?
The old one is still up.
Okay. You know what? Let me close it. That might help.
Do you notice the ones that seem to be more serious buyers spend the time to really sign in to an open house
Yes.
thing? Okay, as opposed to like when we go as agents just for broker caravan, I'm just putting my name in like KW Larchmont, I'm not, but when you find real interested buyers, they actually take the time to fill these out, you're saying?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And because if they're looking for somewhere and, they're not working with anyone, then yeah, and it allows you to discuss and have questions about it. This was the improved version I got, and I started like, oh, this one's a little bit better. What are your current needs and blah, 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 but it still kind of does the same thing. Also, and one of you pointed out, you can't take notes on this, because what if the first person signs in and you're like, oh, by the way, they have 2 kids with them and I know they have a dog, and you write that in there. Well, the next person signing in is going to see that, and so it doesn't work. So I developed my own, and everybody in coaching, they get a copy of it in the folder that's shared. The one that you guys should be seeing, it should be one for Umbria, and that's the one that actually recently Ashley helped me on. If you notice, it's 1 person per sign-in sheets. Okay, a number of things. 1, let's say you've had 2 people to the open house. Let's say you've had 100 people to the open house. Nobody knows how many people came to your open house because they literally don't know. They realize it's 1 person per sheet, and it's always fresh and clean. So by default, yay, it's all in there. And it gives you plenty of room. Another thing I've always hated is forms where you're supposed to fill in information and they don't give you enough room to put in all of the information. So it was like, no, let's have enough room to put in all your information. Then it does ask, well, what are your real estate needs? Are you currently working with a lender? That one, I just recently changed the wording because a lot of them will say, are you pre-approved for a loan? And somebody had kind of said, that kind of makes it sound as if, are you pre-approved? Are you good enough, not good enough? So it's like, oh, are you working with a lender? Is that, does that sound better? And it does. So that's what, put in there. What type of properties are you interested in? Are you working with an agent? And by the way, a lot of times they'll go through this and I'll read it, or we'll go through it together or whatever, and I'll take notes because guess what? It's one sign-in per sheet. So I can put all my notes I want on this thing. And by the way, a lot of times, if there's something that, I'm writing in there, I'll write it in after they leave. And I do this all the time. I'll put in like, oh, by the way, and I happen to remember this couple, Vincent and Keisha, they came to an open house and they, he is a retired cop and she is a social worker. And I don't remember that information because I'm brilliant. It's because I've just looked at the form so much, but I wrote all that information on it after they left. So when I wanted to follow up, I had all that information on a fan. I had the information that they both wanted walk-in closets, that they both wanted certain things, that they didn't have any kids, and nor were they planning to have any kids because they were both like by this time in their 40s. I had all this information written down because it was a single sign-in sheet, and it just made it much easier to do that. Especially now, by the way, some people, regardless of how you feel about our current pandemic, most people feel comfortable right now with signing in on a single sheet, not where everybody else is signed in too. So that also alleviates it as well. So that's why I do my open house sign-in sheets like this. And then at the bottom, as you can see, I have an area for notes. So, and some of the notes can be, oh, they want a corner lot. They want a pool. They want, they're concerned about the school district. Any of those things, I can write that information in. It allows you, it makes it easier, to follow up with them and so on. And it's one sheet per client. So again, it makes it a lot easier. Any questions on that one?
You said we could have accessed these or
Yes, everybody in coaching, there's a Google Drive that's available to you. And these are some of the things that are available in the Google
okay.
Drive.
Thank you.
Sure. And then I can always email them too, because they're a small file. They're like 200K. They're no big deal.
Okay.
The ones, and by the way, the ones you can see, I put in the name because I did the layout and InDesign, so I'll put any name I want. The ones that get shared with everybody else, those are the ones that I just leave everything blank. So it just makes it easy to take the PDF, print it out, and then, it can be done in. And then as you get more experienced, if you want to bring it into like Canva and put in the name yourself or whatever, yay for you. But, you can figure that out.
Thank you.
I come from a graphic design background before I started doing real estate. So for me, doing the designs and all that in InDesign, yeah, that's great. Other people, if they have to use something else, well, have at it, whatever works.
That's an advantage for you. That's a good thing.
It is, I'll tell you, and I'm not making it sound bad.
No.
We can always leverage whatever we have to our advantage. And so, yay. The disadvantage is when I first got into the industry, what I started doing is I started doing more design work and less business. So I started, oh, let me design this. Let me do this. I can create this. And I was doing all the stuff and materials I was doing to create, and I wasn't having conversations with people. And it struck me at one point, okay, what do I need to leverage? And really it more happened when I came to Largemont. I really started learning like, well, wait, what do I need to leverage? And there's sometimes like, okay, let me leverage that out. Who can do that better? Or is what is being offered good enough? And if it's good enough, then that's fine. And if I need to refine it later, I can. But if it's a choice of, well, let me design this flyer, or let me call 5 clients up or get together with a client for coffee or something, I need to do that because that's my business, not designing the flyer. But thank you. You can always, any experience you have, you can always leverage in some way. You just can figure it out. This was one, by the way, I had set up for the first open house I ever did, where it was like, okay, well, if they were to purchase this particular home, And as you can tell at that price point, it was years ago. If they were to purchase this particular home, what would their payments be? So I was able, at the time I had access to an app that would divide it down like this. And so I just did a quick and dirty layout. And it let me put it in terms when people came in, especially first time home buyers. Well, what would I be looking at? Well, if you put down 10%, put down this, whatever, that's what you'd be looking at. And so this was something just easy. It helps sometimes to have this. Again, it depends on the home you're selling. You know, if it's a first time buyer place and you think you're going to have a lot of people coming in like that, that really helps. If it's like, quite frankly, the 1.5 million I just sold in Highland Park that Ashley did open houses with, I went in and put something out like this, because most of the people coming in, they have some, if they are first time home buyers, they have the means of buying a $1.5 million home. So probably don't need to worry about this kind of stuff. Or they've done homes before or whatever. So this wasn't as big of a deal to them. But again, if you're in an entry level place, then something like this sometimes can help them with it too. So this was one of the other things that I had shared with people. Okay, and I'm doing the share on this instead of just uploading because it's easier sometimes, I know, to follow along. Let's see, what's the other one? Oh my gosh, there's another one I have and I cannot find it. Something else. So, okay. Any questions so far, by the way?
No.
Okay. Again, this is something everybody, and this is my InDesign, but you can do this in any program. This is something that I had, I do this quite a bit because it presents very well. And anybody who's done my open houses has seen sometimes the same frames. I will go to Marshall's or Ross and buy the $8 8x10 frame, something that looks decent, looks nice. And then I'll print these things out. And the reason why I do some of this is like the one home in Downey, we were having a lot of open houses for the home. And it was a vacant home and we were getting a lot of activity. So what I did is I would just have an 8x10 frame on the front porch that would just say when the open house times were. So it allowed people just to know, like if they were to drive up, because obviously the big sign and post was in the yard, and they could see like, oh, here's the open house times. And that's when we did our open house. I had another home available that was on Shoemaker. And but it was one of those homes that the front of the home wasn't where the front door was. You actually had to go to the side of the home for the front door. So I had two welcome to the Shoemaker property and arrows. So when people walked up to the house, they still felt like, oh, they were being guided in, just like they would with the open house signs that people with the cars. I did the same with the 8x10 signs. And I've done this for a ton of things. Like we've had booties at different open houses. So bingo, I have a little 8x10 thing in there. I've done one such as that. I've had one where that first, is this it? Yes. My first condo, the one I showed you that I did that flyer for, you had to, it was, the building was built in 1983. They hadn't updated their system. So basically somebody had to call you to be buzzed in. So what I did is this went into an 8x10 frame. I put it above because the call box was one of those ones that stuck out a little bit. So I just set it on top of the call box. So anybody that wanted to see unit 4, you can see. You can either call or text me, and then I would, most time I had to go down the elevator and let them in. But as you can see, this wasn't just a generic sign. It was a luxury condo. And so I even made all my materials kind of reflect the whole presentation. And you know, it's not hard to do, it just takes a little bit of work. Now, the last part of this is going to be where people ask, well, how do I get open houses? Yep, that's $1 million question, huh? That's not easy to do. You know, I'm just going to be honest about that. Make it known, you know, like I have a running slide in our weekly meetings saying, hey, anybody who needs help with open houses, please let me know. But it's one of those things, as they become available, And the other thing is, does the listing agent want the help? Do they need the help? And then if so, then they may contact me. I had a streak last year where I had a number of listings and they were like, boom, one right after another. Like one got started to get ready to go into escrow and bingo, another one got listed. And then, okay, so I had a bunch of open houses that like, who wants to help out? Come on down, here we go. And yay, that was great. Right now, I'm not looking at that on my plate. Right now, most of my clients are serious buyers. So, and I just found out I may have a listing coming up in June. So all of us, our industry it's not predictable is what I'm saying on that always. So what's going to be available is what's going to be available. So if you want to do open houses, great. But you know, it's when they're available. And listing agents tend to give up their open houses more simply because they're not really at the time working with buyers unless they have a buyer's agent. But if it's just them and they're a listing agent primarily, then since buyers tend to take up more time, they tend to work with just the listings, and then they will give up the open houses because then it's mainly buyers coming in, and that's, you know, how the house is being shown. But it just depends, you know, that whole thing just depends. So, you know, putting out there, if there's somebody you started a relationship with, like another agent in the office, and, you know, you just say, hey, by the way, if you ever have any open houses you need help with, please let me know, then great. You know, then a lot of times you can get an open house that way, but it just depends on that. Any other questions? Okay.
Yeah, no. Okay.
Open houses, by the way, are not, don't expect, like for me, my, at the time, boyfriend, now husband, he knows that when I do open houses, when I first did them, he was like, well, why are you so tired afterwards? And I tend to be a lot of energy, but when you're at an open house, you're on like the entire time. You're on, and you're always aware of everything, and you're talking to people, and you're also having to say the same thing over and over again, which means you're having to focus on keeping your energy up. You know, for instance, you know, again, that same home that I had mentioned, you know, oh, this is a lovely 3-bedroom, 2.5 bath home, Craftsman restored. It does qualify for the HPOZ, but it isn't currently HPOZ. And so, but it can qualify for it. And the windows that have been restored actually have been restored to historical standards. So those wouldn't have to be redone either. It did have a septic tank, which was, you're just, every time you say it, you have to present, and you have to present. So it does take a lot of energy doing those kind of open houses. You know, you want to be prepared. When you're locking down an open house, you know, make sure everything is closed and all that kind of stuff, and done according to what the agent wants. So many of my open houses, when they're vacant, I always wanted 1 or 2 lights on. I never wanted the house dark. Some agents want all the lights off. So it just depends on, you know, who the agent is. If you, let's say you have an open house, and the next day you're having open house, feel free to leave the signs out. You know, people do that all the time. It's kind of just one of those things people understand. That's when it really is helpful to put on the signs at time. So if you have, like I've done before on my open houses, where it'll say like 1 to 5 p.m. or 12 to 4 p.m. or something like that, right on the sign itself, then people know if they're driving by at 11, oh, open house isn't there yet. And so you're inside, you know, cleaning up the bathroom or sweeping down the thing, nobody's going to show up because it's not that time. So yay, you know, don't be surprised if people come, you say it's 12 to 4 and people come at 4 p.m. And then one person comes in and like, oh, can we get in? There's been a lot of times that I was supposed to close open house at 5 and I wasn't done until like 6 because they just kept seeing more people come in and more people came in, and hey, these are all potential buyers. So I was still going to show it to all these people. A listing agent will appreciate feedback. Whenever I would do an open house, any sort of feedback would be great. If you had serious buyers, what the foot traffic was, what the impressions were, if they felt the home was overpriced, if they felt like offers were going to be made, if they felt like there needed to be things done, whatever, you know, any of that feedback was great. Listing agents really prefer it. I will tell you one person I will never give a listing open house to again, and this was years ago, so don't worry, you don't know this person. But they had come from, they used to be an AT&T executive, and they had retired and they decided to go into real estate. And they wanted to do open house, and I was like, great, why don't you take this weekend, you know, I gave them the weekend and Saturday and Sunday. Okay, great. So Saturday rolls around and didn't hear anything, but I was like, no big deal, because, you know, they also have the open house the next day. And so she'll probably let me know the next day. Next day rolls around. And so I'll, you know, it's like getting to be 7 p.m., 8 p.m. And finally I text and I thought, well, you know, let me just see. So I said, by the way, how did open house go? And the reply was, oh, I didn't do open house today because Saturday only 3 people showed up and I didn't really think it was worth my time. Okay, one, you didn't communicate with me on that you weren't going to do open house. Yet you told me originally you were. Okay, that doesn't sit well with me. Secondly, I had just put out there on the internet that we were going to have open house. So who knows how many people did or didn't show up, but who knows, because nobody was there, might have shown up to that open house and nobody was there to let them in. And I couldn't find anybody else to replace them because I didn't even know that this person wasn't going to follow through. So that was one of my experiences I had with somebody that I thought, nope, not working with this person again. So that was a little FYI. On the other hand, I will say that the people who've done open houses with me from KW Larchmont, I've really thoroughly enjoyed. It's been a great time. You know, it can be a lot of fun. People can share ideas and that sort of thing. So just a little FYI on that. Oh, and then when we do, let's say there's an open house, it's not a free for all, just, you know, again, you want people to be comfortable. So if you have 3 people that are in a party together and they walk in and there's 4 agents ready to talk to them, that's a little bit, you know, much. So usually, you know, you want anywhere, it depends on the size of the home, but you want anywhere from 2 to 3 agents on average to be at the house, just depending. So a lot of times, like if there's an open house available, if they just get even one person to man it, then a lot of times then that's fine too. It just depends on what the agent wants and what the situation calls for. Okay. Any other questions on open houses? Okay.
No, I'm good. Thanks, Rob.
Thank you, guys. I enjoy doing these calls, and I will see you guys same bat time, same bat channel for next call next week. Take care.
All right.
Thank
Thanks
you.
a lot, Rob.
Bye, guys.
Appreciate it. Bye.